Danny Kennedy returned home late that night, tired and uneasy. He felt like a nervous animal, constantly alert, ready for whatever might happen next. His life seemed to teeter on the edge, waiting for something to shift. Would he run from the danger? No. Would he hide from the threat? Absolutely not. He thrived on it. Above all, he yearned for clarity. The suspense gnawed at him. What did they want from him? And how soon could he act? The Grand Knights of the Royal Order of yore were a secretive group with vast power and connections. Known as the Magistratus to those familiar with them, they were said to have influenced history since the Middle Ages, shaping the rise of great civilizations. Danny had been invited to join by an old college friend, Richie Land, whom he hadn't seen in years. Each member was responsible for recruiting one new member, and past attempts by Richie had failed. Danny didn't mind being the last option. This was exactly the opportunity he needed. A natural at networking, he thrived on connections. As an insurance agent, Danny's success was built on relationships, not cold calls. The Magistratus seemed like the perfect platform to skyrocket his career. He stayed awake at night, filled with anticipation. The induction ceremony was formal and slow, filled with candles, robes, and cryptic language. Danny had only to recite a few lines. However, he didn't anticipate the trial that followed, the trial of brotherhood. Whenever called by the order, members were expected to assist without hesitation. Brotherhood came before everything: family, country, business. The trial was Danny's final test. He waited, nervously anticipating his task, eager to step into his new life. When would his instructions arrive? It had already been 3 days. He knew they would keep him in the dark, but the wait was driving him mad. He paced his apartment, sweating through his suit, a prisoner to his anxiety. Suddenly, his phone rang, snapping him from his frantic state. Hesitantly, he approached it. Was he afraid? No. "Hello?" he shouted into the receiver. Silence. "Hello," he called again, but only static responded. Was there breathing? A low, gravelly voice finally broke the silence. "We are very disappointed in your progress." "What? What do you mean?" Danny demanded. "Is this the order?" "Hello." The phone clicked off. "Hello." Danny yelled in frustration. "Hello. Progress? What progress?" They hadn't even given him any instructions. Maybe it wasn't the order after all. Maybe it was a wrong number. No. It had to be the order. But what did they mean? What was going on? He thought about calling Richie, but hesitated. It was against the rules. No contact with the order during the trial of brotherhood. Breaking the rules meant failure. At least, that's what he remembered. It sounded right, didn't it? Maybe he was wrong. What were they waiting for him to do? Wasn't it to wait for instructions? Wasn't that in the brochure? Hadn't someone told him that? Maybe he should go back to the hall. A knock on the door broke his thoughts. Danny froze. Was it them? Of course it was. Should he answer? The knock came again. He rushed to the door. No. He shouldn't. Yes, he should. They were reaching out to him. He had to answer. No. Yes. No. What was he supposed to do? He had to act. He unlocked the door, opening it a crack. No one was there. He swung the door open, peering down the empty hallway. Both directions were deserted, except for some paint cans from ongoing renovations. Everything felt off, except. He stepped forward and kicked something, a small, unmarked brown box. From the order, surely. Finally, a clue. Danny brought the box inside. What could it be? Should he open it? He hadn't been instructed to. Maybe it was a test. If he opened it, they might expel him. His mind raced as he second-guessed himself. Grabbing a knife, he sliced through the tape, revealing the contents wrapped in tissue. Inside were a pair of red high-heeled shoes. What on earth did this mean? Women's shoes. Danny dug through the box again, hoping for some clue, some scrap of information. He was so frazzled that he found himself tugging at his hair in frustration. What had the voice on the phone said? "We are very disappointed in your progress." That was his only lead. Then it clicked. This was an initiation. Initiation, that was the key. Like a fraternity. He remembered hearing in college about guys dressing up as women for fraternity initiations. But this couldn't be the same thing, right? No, it didn't make sense. But the evidence was right there, women's shoes and the words, "We are very disappointed in your progress." It had to mean he was supposed to dress as a woman. That was his task, his trial. He had the instructions. Now it was time to act. Not wanting to risk his job, he called in sick, probably for a while. That night, he ordered clothes, a wig, and lipstick to be delivered urgently to his apartment. The next morning, he waited anxiously by the door, ready to grab the packages as soon as they arrived. He heard a knock. But it wasn't his door, it was the neighbor's. Cautiously, he peeked out. "Hey," Danny whispered to the delivery man. "Excuse me, sir. Are you speaking to me, sir?" the delivery guy replied. Just his luck. "Yes," he said quietly. "Are those packages for apartment 23B? Marianne's boutique. Are you sure?" "These are for apartment 23B. The delivery guy looked at the door, but the numbers had been removed for painting. "These look like women's clothes, sir." Danny wanted to strangle him. "Are you D.G. Kennedy? Apartment 23B. Trying to keep his voice low, Danny yelled, "Yes. I see," the delivery guy said lazily. "Sign here, sir." Danny grabbed the electronic pad and hastily scribbled his signature. The delivery man cleared his throat. Danny tossed the pad back at him and slammed the door shut. He tore open the package and sorted through the unfamiliar items. He applied the lipstick, squeezed into the shoes, stuffed socks into his shirt, and put on the wig. Stumbling around his apartment, he wrestled the oversized floral dress over his head. It was now or never. There was no turning back. He planned to walk around the building a couple of times, just enough to be seen, and then retreat to his apartment. Danny headed for the freight elevator. Nervously, he walked around the block, awkwardly keeping his gaze straight ahead and avoiding eye contact. It was a big city, people had seen stranger things and didn't seem to care. He darted back into his building through the rear delivery entrance, relieved that he hadn't run into anyone he knew. Collapsing onto the couch, Danny exhaled heavily, as if he'd just run a marathon. Then the phone rang. "We are very disappointed in your progress," the voice said. "What?" Danny shouted into the phone, but it was already dead. Shaking the receiver in frustration, Danny muttered, "Isn't that enough?" He replaced the handset and walked to the mirror. The truth hit him like a ton of bricks. He looked absurd. Pantyhose bunched at his ankles, smeared lipstick, and a fake chest that looked ridiculous. He wasn't fooling anyone, he needed professional help. Danny was more satisfied with his progress now. Looking in the mirror, he could still see a trace of himself reflected, though it was softened and concealed. The makeup was a bit too bold, and his strong features were still evident. He looked like a drag queen, which was exactly what he expected when he booked an appointment at Makeovers by Violetta in the gay district. He'd spent a few $100s for the full treatment, groomed brows, pierced ears, and a convincing new wig. Now, he resembled a mix of a Vegas showgirl and a construction worker, but it was what he expected and worth every penny. Danny confidently strolled down the street, taking his time in his heels as he walked back and forth on the sidewalk outside his apartment. Onlookers might have mistaken him for a cast member from L'Arcade Auxiliary Falls, with his glittering red gown, long chandelier earrings, and flashy costume jewelry. His nails were painted bright red, extending an inch long. It was outrageous, but Danny didn't mind as long as the magistratus noticed. After about 20 minutes, he felt he'd made his point. Then, from his bedazzled purse, his cell phone rang, startling him so much that his wig slipped askew. "Hello," he answered cautiously. "We are very disappointed in your progress. the gravelly voice intoned. "Damn it!" Danny shouted at the bystanders. "What do they want from me?" He held back from throwing the phone to the ground. People stared at him. Then, a realization struck him. His voice. It still sounded unmistakably male. "Hello," he cooed. "Kennedy residence, how may I assist you?" He'd spent 3 solid days perfecting this new voice. He found online courses on developing a feminine voice and squeezed in every spare moment to practice. He continued humming to warm up his vocal cords. "Hello." Danny tried again, almost perfecting the tone. He kept speaking, casual. "Hello, coffee mug," he said. "Hello, shoes." Still wearing the pumps, he kept them on all day, anticipating they might check at any moment. Surprisingly nimble now. Finally, the phone rang. "Hello. Kennedy residence," Danny greeted, flawless. This had to be it. They hadn't liked his voice before. With the dress, the look, and the voice, how could he not meet their expectations? "We are very disappointed in your progress," the voice stated. Then, the line went dead with a click. Danny seethed, frustration boiling inside him. Danny believed he had everything under control now. There was only one flaw remaining in his disguise, and he was sure he had fixed it. For a while, everything seemed to slip away: his success, money, power. But now, with everything coming together, he was in a better position. Whatever that meant. No wonder his progress hadn't been fast enough. He carried some weight. At 5'9" and almost 155 pounds, he wasn't fat for a man, but for a woman, it was too much. The outfits he'd ordered over the last 2 weeks were all plus-sized to cover his masculine proportions. If he wanted to wear a real dress and pass as a woman, he needed to lose weight fast. He started with basic workouts, but they weren't fast enough. Then, he tried weight loss supplements and extreme celebrity diets, still not quick enough. Finally, he opted for a minor liposuction procedure, not a major change, just enough to trim his waist. He had wanted to shed a few pounds anyway. As a result, he dropped to a svelte 115 pounds. After the surgery, he wore a compression garment for a couple of weeks. They offered male and female versions. He naturally chose the female one. It was exactly what he needed. His waist now measured 22 inches, and the doctor assured him it would become even slimmer once the swelling subsided. Maybe it was his imagination, but his buttocks and hips appeared fuller, as the garment redistributed the fat to create a more feminine silhouette. It looked perfect. The whole procedure had been expensive, but it was worth it to make progress with the order. Exiting his building, Danny wore his new, flattering brandy-colored peplum skirt set, showcasing his slimmed-down figure. Someone from the order had better be watching because he looked fantastic. He'd spent the whole afternoon running errands, ensuring that whoever needed to see him did so. He hadn't wasted his recovery time either. He'd set up a new bank account and credit card under the name Kendall Kennedy and even obtained a fake ID under that alias, just in case it was needed. He wasn't taking any chances. There was no way he'd be caught off guard, figuratively or literally. Danny clattered down the street, hailing a taxi. When one refused to stop, he jumped into traffic, waving his arms frantically. Finally, one screeched to a halt. Wrestling with his tight, floor-length skirt, he struggled to get into the car, eventually hoisting himself up by grabbing the roof and contorting his bound legs inside. He ended up landing awkwardly on his side, his curly wig slipping off. Quickly, he readjusted it and sat upright, slamming the door shut behind him. Then his cell phone rang. "We are very disappointed in your progress." Danny's dreams of success turned into living nightmares. He could vividly imagine the success he had worked for slipping away. The magistratus were not pleased. He almost saw them, dark, shadowy figures trailing him, lurking in alleyways, just out of sight. They whispered, disappointed, shaking their heads. And still, he couldn't figure out what they wanted from him. Then, he remembered the last phone call, the moment he struggled foolishly to get into the cab. That was the key. He hadn't been behaving like a woman. Despite sounding like one and dressing the part, he hadn't fully embraced it. So, he researched and found Dr. Olivia Morgan, a psychologist who specialized in helping transgender men transition to women, including hypnotherapy, a crucial detail for Danny. It cost him more than he wanted to spend, but eventually, the doctor agreed to help with both her expertise and hypnotherapy skills. Money could buy a lot, even professional integrity. But how long could he keep throwing money at this problem? It had to pay off eventually. 2 weeks of intense hypnotherapy had made a noticeable difference. Danny felt invigorated by the changes he saw in himself, how he moved, spoke, sat, and gestured. Catching his reflection in the mirror, he barely recognized the person staring back at him. Gone was his previous stoic demeanor. Now, his smile and bright, open eyes radiated warmth. He stood tall, moved with grace, and everything about him exuded femininity. It all felt like the pieces were finally falling into place. Thank you so much, Olivia," Danny expressed gratefully. The doctor smiled with satisfaction. The transformation was impressive. "Kendall, please. It takes a lot of dedication to achieve such rapid progress. You should be very proud of yourself," she said. Danny had fabricated a story to share with the doctor, deliberately avoiding any mention of the order, which was strictly off-limits. Instead, he crafted a narrative about his long-suppressed desire to embrace his true identity as a woman. The first time he told the story, he almost burst into laughter. Fortunately, he managed to pass it off as tears of emotional release, the pain of never being able to express his true self. He still found it amusing whenever he thought about it. With a modest gesture, Danny waved off the doctor's praise. "I couldn't have done it without you, Olivia. You've been incredible throughout this whole journey. It's been life-changing. I can't thank you enough." He shook his head, enjoying the sensation of his now shoulder-length natural hair, styled with extensions. His once visible beard was no longer a concern, thanks to his meticulous shaving routine. Maybe, just maybe, shaving twice a day was starting to affect the hair follicles, right? "Before you go, I want to make sure you're still taking your pills, and promise me you'll come back every few weeks for a check-in," the doctor insisted. "Oh, don't worry, Olivia. You won't get rid of me," Danny laughed. "But I thought the pills were just for these sessions." The doctor shook her head. "No, Kendall. You need to keep taking them. All my transitioning patients do." Danny was confused. Were the pills just to relax him for the hypnotherapy? What else could they be for? "How long, Olivia?" "Well, go see Dr. Thompson next door," the doctor replied, handing Danny a card. "He can give you subdermal implants that'll last for the rest of the year." Danny liked the sound of that. He'd visit Dr. Thompson right away. "That's very kind of you, Olivia. I really appreciate everything." After getting the subdermal implants from Dr. Thompson, Danny decided to treat himself to a new outfit to celebrate the completion of his therapy. He was curious to see what he'd choose now that he had the mind of a woman. Unfortunately, he found himself still drawn to the same styles he'd have picked as Danny. Exiting the store, he wore a red sheath dress that fell just above the knee, paired with his trusted red pumps. He was surprised to find the size 10 a little loose, although still too big for an 8. Clearly, more workouts were in order. Danny had also picked up a smart purse, some bracelets, a necklace, and a cute brooch. Paying with his Kendall Kennedy credit card, he shrugged it off, reasoning that he had misplaced most of his Danny cards, likely still in his wallet, wherever that was. As he loaded his bags into the taxi, gracefully swinging his legs into the seat, he spoke in the feminine voice he had grown used to. "Bridgewood Tower Apartments, please." Then his cell phone rang. Maybe it was the girls from the fitness club, Olivia, or Daisy, his hairdresser. He took off an earring to answer. "Hello," he answered softly. "We are very disappointed in your progress," the voice said flatly. "What?" Danny exclaimed into the phone. "I've done everything." The dial tone felt like a sentence. Danny seethed with frustration. He slammed his heels on the taxi's floor and screamed in anger. He had worked tirelessly, done everything, absolutely everything, except… Wait a minute. That was the test. How far would he go? That was what the magistratus wanted to see. Did he have the commitment? The commitment to give up everything to join the Grand Knights of the Royal Order of your… Okay. Change of plans, Danny told the driver firmly. Take me to the airport. He arrived in the Rocky Mountains with nothing but determination. Danny had done his research, made calls, and traveled immediately. It had cost him a fortune, but he saw this as his defining step to prove his worth to join the order. This would secure his place. Almost every penny he had saved went into this effort, but he reassured himself it would pay off tenfold. Becoming part of the magistratus wouldn't just solve his problems, it would obliterate them. They would elevate him to success, wealth, respect, and fear. Every desire of his heart would be fulfilled. His appointment with the surgeon covered everything: vocal cord modification, facial reconstruction, silicone enhancements, and, most importantly, gender reassignment surgery. Despite the surgeon's initial hesitation about Danny's brief transition period, a generous check quickly changed his mind. The surgeon, renowned worldwide, was known for his expertise and for taking lucrative rush jobs. Within days, Danny was checking into a private clinic, signing away control of his fate. But Danny wasn't afraid. He'd spotted the man on his flight and again at the airport, an agent of the magistratus, shadowing him. He was being watched, tested. But Danny saw through their game, understanding their plan. They intended for him to go through with the surgery, under anesthesia, to the point of no return. Yet, in his unwavering dedication to the order, they would pull him back, praising his commitment to follow their orders. He would wake to find everything he sought within his grasp: money, power, influence, and peace. From that moment on, his life would finally be secure. The surgery had taken longer than expected, but now that she was finally home, Kendall felt an overwhelming sense of relief. It was over. The procedure had been complicated, and waking up from vaginoplasty had taken a strange turn. Things had been even more eventful than the doctor had predicted. As she bent down to collect the mail that had piled up at her doorstep over the past weeks, Kendall noticed it was all addressed to the previous mail occupant. Her white miniskirt and tight, fire-red crop top would have certainly caught anyone's attention as she did so. She dumped the mail on the table, too exhausted to even kick off her heels before collapsing onto the sofa. The past few days had been a whirlwind. After her full gender reassignment surgery, which had been more dramatic than expected according to the doctor, Kendall had caused quite a scene, requiring sedation and restraint. She'd apparently been ranting about a fraternal order, though she couldn't remember any of it now. Thankfully, Olivia had come to her rescue, flying in to help. After several hypnotherapy sessions, Kendall regained her balance and reconnected with her lifelong goal of living as her authentic self. While Olivia had expressed concern about the rush Kendall had made toward surgery, she had set her worries aside to support Kendall during her recovery. Finally, Kendall was herself. All the effort and money had paid off, transforming her into the woman she had always known herself to be. It marked the end of a long and difficult journey, one for which she owed Olivia her deepest gratitude. Being home was incredibly comforting. However, she decided to clean up tomorrow. There was no doubt it needed it. Actually, why wait? Kendall emptied her trash bins into a bag and headed into the hall to dispose of them. "Hi there." A voice greeted her from the left, the neighbor from next door, someone she'd never spoken to before. "Oh, hi." Kendall replied warmly. "I'm Charlotte." The woman introduced herself. "I don't think we've met, but I just had to ask, where did you get those shoes?" "These." Kendall showed them off with a smile. "Aren't they lovely? I used to have a pair just like them," Charlotte said wistfully. "I sent them out for repairs a few months ago, but they never came back." "That's too bad," Kendall sympathized. "Do you remember when they were painting the hallway?" Charlotte asked. "They took all the numbers off the doors, and I think everyone's deliveries got mixed up for a few days. I wondered if maybe my shoes were delivered to you by mistake. I don't think so, Kendall replied. I received these as a gift, I believe. Hard to remember. Just then, her phone rang. Oops, that's my phone. Nice to meet you, Charlotte. Would you like to grab tea sometime? Charlotte smiled. I'd love that. Just leave me a message or stop by. I will. Kendall waved goodbye and grabbed her phone before it went to voicemail. Hello, she answered. We are very… A deep, gravelly voice began. We don't know what's going on with you. Excuse me? Who is this? I think you've got the wrong number, Kendall said, growing upset. The voice sounded weary. Look, Danny. Since you never came back to the hall for instructions, it's over. I don't know what your issue is, but the latest information we have is troubling. Just move on with your life, whatever you're into. We didn't realize you were such an oddball. Forget about us. Hey. Kendall's anger flared. Listen to me, you arrogant jerk. I can't change who I am inside. We all need to stay true to ourselves, and people should appreciate that. Taking a deep breath, she continued passionately, we need to move beyond these ignorant biases and accept people for who they are, not who we want them to be. It's attitudes like yours that make life so difficult and hurtful for others. As a society, we should be supportive, understanding, and loving toward everyone. And if your attitude is any indication, I'm deeply disappointed in our progress. Don't forget to join me on Patreon for exclusive content,